Jake Thompson leaned against the kitchen counter in his Seattle loft, the hum of the city filtering through the open window. At 35, he was the kind of man people trusted instinctively, steady, thoughtful, with a quiet strength honed by years of balancing his architecture firm with late-night mentorship sessions for young designers. His weekends often ended at the local shelter, serving meals or fixing leaky pipes, a habit he picked up after his parents' early deaths taught him the value of giving back. His wife, Emily, was his anchor, or so he thought. 8 years of marriage had woven their lives together, her vibrant energy as a marketing exec complementing his calm focus. But tonight, something felt off. Jake had just returned from a site visit, his laptop bag still slung over his shoulder, when he heard Emily's voice from the living room. She was on the phone, her tone light, almost playful, with a laugh Jake hadn't heard in months. He paused, not eavesdropping intentionally, but drawn by the unfamiliar cadence. "Ryan, you're impossible," she said, her voice dipping into a conspiratorial giggle. "Yeah, I'll handle the details for the weekend. Just make sure it's worth it." Jake's stomach tightened. Weekend? They hadn't planned anything. And who was Ryan? He stepped into the living room, his boots soft on the hardwood. Emily sat cross-legged on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, fingers tapping a pen against a notepad. She didn't notice him at first, too caught up in her conversation. "San Francisco's perfect," she continued. "I'll book the flight tomorrow. Can't wait." Her words hung in the air, casual but sharp, like a blade slipping through fabric. Jake cleared his throat, and Emily's head snapped up. Her eyes flickered, surprise, then a quick mask of calm. "Gotta go," she said into the phone, hanging up without breaking eye contact. "Hey, you're home early," she said, her voice too bright like someone flipping a switch. She stood, smoothing her posture, and tucked the phone into her pocket. Jake set his bag down, searching her face for the woman he knew, the one who'd once stayed up all night helping him sketch a community center design when he was drowning in deadlines. But her smile was tight, rehearsed. "Who's Ryan?" Jake asked, keeping his tone even. He wasn't one for accusations, not yet. Emily hesitated, just a beat, but it was enough to deepen the unease in his chest. "Ryan? Oh, my boss. You know, the new director at Apex." She waved a hand, dismissive. "We were just sorting out some work stuff. Big campaign coming up." She moved to the kitchen, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge, her movements deliberate, avoiding his gaze. "Work stuff on a weekend?" Jake pressed, following her. "You didn't mention any trips." His voice stayed calm, but his mind raced. Emily had been distant lately, late nights at the office, vague texts, canceled dinners. He'd chalked it up to her promotion, the long hours. But this felt different. Emily took a sip of water, leaning against the counter. "It's a last-minute thing. Ryan needs me for a client meeting in San Francisco. It's a big deal for my career." Her words were smooth, practiced, but her eyes darted to the side, a tell Jake had learned to spot years ago when she'd fudged the truth about overspending on their first vacation. "Why just you and Ryan?" Jake asked, stepping closer. "No one else from the team?" His question hung heavy, the air between them thickening. Emily's composure faltered for a split second, her fingers tightening around the bottle. "It's not like that," she said, a touch defensive. "It's a small meeting. Strategic. You know how these things are." But her voice lacked conviction, and Jake's gut twisted. He'd always trusted her, believed in their partnership. They'd built a life together, shared dreams, late-night talks, promises of forever. But now, her words felt like a wall, keeping him out. "Emily," he said, softer now, searching for the truth in her eyes. "What's going on? Really?" He didn't want to beg, didn't want to sound desperate, but the question carried the weight of 8 years of love. She sighed, setting the bottle down with a soft clink. "Jake, it's just work. You're overthinking this." But her tone was too sharp, too final, like she was closing a door. She grabbed her notepad and brushed past him, heading toward the stairs. "I need to prep for tomorrow. Long day." Her footsteps echoed as she climbed, leaving Jake alone in the kitchen, the hum of the fridge filling the silence. He stood there, staring at the spot where she'd been. The woman he'd married wouldn't lie so easily, wouldn't dismiss him like an afterthought. Doubt gnawed at him, but so did a spark of resolve. Jake wasn't the type to explode or accuse without proof. He was methodical, a problem solver. If something was wrong, he'd find out, not with shouts or tears, but with clarity. Later that night, after Emily had gone to bed, Jake sat at his desk in the small home office. The glow of his laptop screen lit his face as he opened her calendar, synced to their shared cloud. A few clicks revealed a hotel booking in San Francisco. Not a budget chain for a quick work trip, but a boutique hotel with a view, reserved under her name and Ryan's. His heart sank, but he kept digging. Emails, buried in a folder marked Work, confirmed his fears. Casual messages between Emily and Ryan, laced with inside jokes and plans for after hours. No smoking gun, but enough to know this wasn't just business. Jake closed the laptop, his hands steady despite the storm in his chest. He wouldn't confront her yet. He needed proof, something undeniable. He opened his phone and searched for a private investigator in Seattle, scrolling through reviews until he found Sarah Miller, a PI with a reputation for discretion and results. Her website promised truth without drama, and Jake needed exactly that. He sent a message outlining the basics: his wife, her boss, a trip to San Francisco, and his need for evidence. Within minutes, Sarah replied, promising to start the next morning. As Jake shut off the light and climbed into bed beside Emily, her soft breathing filled the room. She seemed at peace, oblivious to the fracture she'd caused. Jake lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing but clear. Whatever came next, he'd face it with the same quiet strength that had carried him through every challenge. Emily might think she was in control, but Jake was already one step ahead. Jake Thompson woke to the sound of Emily's alarm, a sharp chime cutting through the early Seattle morning. She was already up, moving with purpose, gathering her things for the work trip to San Francisco. Jake lay still, eyes half open, watching her silhouette against the dawn light filtering through the blinds. Her efficiency was familiar, but today it felt cold, mechanical, like she was already halfway out of their life. She murmured a quick, "See you Monday," before grabbing her suitcase and leaving, the front door clicking shut behind her. Jake didn't respond. He didn't need to. His plan was already in motion. By 8 a.m., Jake was at his desk, coffee in hand, checking his phone. Sarah Miller, the private investigator he'd hired, had sent a message, teams in place, tracking flights and hotel updates by evening. Jake exhaled, the weight of betrayal still heavy, but now paired with a flicker of control. He wasn't the type to sit idle or let emotions cloud his judgment. As an architect, he thrived on precision. Every line, every angle had purpose. Now, he'd apply that same clarity to uncovering the truth about his wife of 8 years. The day passed in a blur of routine. Jake went to his firm, reviewed blueprints for a community center project, and met with a client. But his mind was elsewhere, tethered to Sarah's promise of evidence. By 6 p.m., his phone buzzed with her first update. Emily and Ryan landed in San Francisco. Checked into the Grandview Hotel, one suite, registered under Ryan's corporate card. Attached were photos, grainy but clear enough. Emily and Ryan in the hotel lobby, her hand brushing his arm, their smiles too intimate for colleagues. Jake stared at the images, his jaw tight. It wasn't just a fling. They were brazen, using company money to fund their affair. Sarah's next message came at 9 p.m. Dinner at Le Bistro, upscale, corporate card again. They're not hiding. Another photo showed them at a candlelit table, Ryan leaning close, Emily laughing. Jake felt a stab of anger, not just at her betrayal, but at the audacity. Apex Marketing, Emily's employer, had strict policies on expense misuse. Jake knew this because she'd once complained about a colleague fired for less. He saved the photos to a secure folder, his resolve hardening. This wasn't just personal. It was a professional scandal waiting to be exposed. Jake called Sarah, his voice steady. "Can you get more? Timestamps, receipts, anything that ties this to the company?" Sarah's tone was all business. "Already on it. My guys got eyes on them tomorrow. I'll have a full report by Sunday." Jake thanked her and hung up, his mind racing. He wasn't just gathering proof for himself. He was building a case. If Emily thought she could walk away unscathed, she was wrong. Saturday brought more updates. Sarah's team tracked Emily and Ryan to a winery in Napa, then a private rooftop event, all charged to Apex's accounts. Each message tightened the knot in Jake's chest, but also fueled his focus. He spent the day digging deeper, accessing Emily's work email through their shared cloud, something she'd never bothered to secure. There, buried in a thread labeled Client Outreach, were messages that made his blood run cold. "Can't wait to get away with you," Ryan wrote. "This trip's our chance to figure things out." Emily's reply, "I'm ready." Jake's too caught up in his work to notice. The words cut deeper than the photos, proof she'd already checked out of their marriage. By Sunday morning, Sarah sent a detailed report. Timestamps, receipts, even a video clip of Emily and Ryan entering the hotel suite, arms linked, laughing. The evidence was airtight. Jake sat back, staring at the screen. 8 years of shared dreams. Late-night talks about starting a family, building a home together, reduced to this. But he didn't linger on the pain. He opened a new email, addressed to his lawyer, Karen Wells, a no-nonsense divorce attorney he'd contacted Friday night. He attached Sarah's files and outlined his goals: a clean divorce, fair asset division, and protection from any fallout. Karen replied within the hour, "This is solid. We'll draft papers tomorrow. Stay calm. Don't confront her yet." Jake nodded to himself, closing his laptop. He wasn't out for revenge, not in the petty sense. He wanted justice, clean, legal, and final. Emily's betrayal had shattered their life, but he wouldn't let it define him. That afternoon, he drove to the community center site, where volunteers were laying the foundation. He joined them, hauling materials, joking with the crew. The physical work grounded him, a reminder of who he was beyond the hurt. A young designer, Mia, thanked him for his mentorship, her gratitude a small balm. For a moment, Jake felt the possibility of a future untainted by Emily's choices. Sunday night, Sarah sent a final update. "They're booked on a morning flight back. I'll tail them to the airport. Anything else?" Jake replied, "Just send the full dossier. You've done enough." He leaned back, the pieces falling into place. Emily would return tomorrow, expecting him to play the oblivious husband. But Jake was ready. He printed Sarah's report, organized the photos and receipts into a sleek black folder, and placed it on the kitchen island. It wasn't dramatic. It was deliberate, a quiet declaration of his strength. As he lay in bed, the empty space beside him felt less like loss and more like clarity. Emily had made her choice, but so had he. Tomorrow, she'd face the consequences, not with shouting or tears, but with the cold weight of evidence. Jake closed his eyes, not sleeping but planning. The man Emily underestimated was about to rewrite their story's ending. Jake Thompson sat at the kitchen island in his Seattle loft, the black folder of evidence resting squarely in front of him. It was Monday morning, and Emily was due back from her San Francisco work trip any minute. The folder contained everything: photos of her with Ryan, receipts tied to Apex Marketing's corporate card, timestamps, and a video clip from Sarah, the private investigator, showing them entering a hotel suite together. Jake's hands were steady, his mind sharp. He'd spent the weekend preparing, not just for this moment, but for the life he'd rebuild after it. The sound of a car pulling up snapped him to attention. Emily was home. The front door opened, and Emily stepped inside, dragging her suitcase. Her steps were light, as if returning from a routine errand. "Hey," she called out, her voice carrying that forced cheer Jake now recognized as a mask. She set her bag by the couch and walked toward the kitchen, pausing when she saw him sitting there, silent, his eyes fixed on the folder. "Everything okay?" she asked, her tone faltering as she registered his stillness. Jake didn't answer immediately. He slid the folder across the island toward her. "Open it," he said, his voice calm but unyielding, like steel wrapped in velvet. Emily's brow furrowed, but she complied, flipping it open. Her fingers froze on the first photo. Her and Ryan in the hotel lobby, too close, too familiar. She turned the page. Dinner receipts, a screenshot of their flirty emails, the video time-stamped and undeniable. Her breath hitched, but she kept flipping, each page stripping away her composure. At the back were divorce papers, already drafted by Jake's lawyer, Karen Wells, with his signature in crisp ink. "What is this?" Emily whispered, though she knew. Her eyes darted to Jake, searching for a crack in his resolve, but found none. "You tell me," Jake said, leaning back in his chair. "You said it was a work trip. Strategic. But you and Ryan used company money for your affair. It's all there, photos, receipts, proof." His words were measured, each one landing like a stone. "I sent a copy to Apex's board this morning. They'll be calling you soon." Emily's face drained of color. She gripped the edge of the island, her knuckles whitening. "Jake," This isn't what it looks like, she stammered, her voice thin. It was just we got carried away. It's not serious. I was stressed. The job's been intense. She stopped, realizing how hollow her excuses sounded. Don't. Jake cut in, his tone still even but now edged with finality. You lied to my face, Emily. For months. You planned this behind my back, laughed about it, wrote me off. He stood, stepping closer, his height casting a shadow over her. You thought I wouldn't notice? That I just take it? Trust is gone. So are we. Emily's eyes welled up, but Jake didn't soften. He'd spent 8 years loving her, building a life together, only to find she'd checked out long ago. Her tears now felt like a performance, too late to matter. Jake, please, she said, reaching for his arm. He stepped back, out of reach. We can fix this. I'll end it with Ryan. I'll do whatever you want. Jake shook his head. You don't get it. This isn't about Ryan. It's about you choosing to betray me, to throw away what we had. He pointed to the divorce papers. Sign them. My lawyer will handle the rest. You have a week to get your things out. Emily's voice broke into a sob. You're throwing me out? After everything? I made a mistake, Jake. Her desperation rose, but it only sharpened his clarity. He saw her now, not as the woman he'd loved, but as someone who'd made her choices and expected no consequences. A mistake. Jake's voice rose slightly, the first crack in his calm. You planned a weekend with him, used company money, lied to my face. That's not a mistake. That's a decision. He took a breath, steadying himself. I'm not throwing you out. I'm letting you go. You did this, Emily. She sank onto a stool, clutching the folder as if it could rewrite itself. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered, but the words lacked weight. Jake didn't respond. He'd heard enough. He walked to the counter, poured a glass of water, and drank slowly, letting the silence press against her. The ball was in her court, but she'd already lost the game. Emily tried one last time. What about us? 8 years, Jake. Doesn't that mean anything? Her voice trembled, but her eyes still held a flicker of defiance, as if she could talk her way out. It meant everything to me, Jake said quietly, but you decided it didn't. I'm done fighting for someone who stopped fighting for us. He turned, heading for the door. I have a meeting. You know where to find my lawyer. As he stepped outside, the Seattle air hit him crisp and grounding. His phone buzzed. Karen, confirming the board had received his email and launched an investigation. Apex's compliance team was already digging into the expenses. Jake slipped the phone into his pocket and walked to his car, his steps deliberate. He wasn't broken, not anymore. Emily's betrayal had cracked his world, but he was already rebuilding piece by piece. She'd underestimated him, and that was her biggest mistake. Back inside, Emily sat frozen, staring at the folder. The photos mocked her, each one a nail in the coffin of her career and marriage. She reached for her phone, dialing Ryan, but it went to voicemail. She tried again, her hand shaking. No answer. The reality was sinking in. She was alone, and the consequences were just beginning. The Seattle sky hung heavy with clouds as Jake Thompson drove to his architecture firm, the weight of yesterday's confrontation with Emily still lingering but no longer crushing. He'd laid out the truth, photos, receipts, divorce papers, and walked away with his dignity intact. His phone buzzed with a text from Karen, his lawyer. Apex board meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Your evidence is under review. Stay focused. Jake nodded to himself, parking his car. He wasn't out for blood, but he'd ensured Emily and Ryan would face the consequences of their choices. Now he was turning his energy to rebuilding. By Tuesday morning, the fallout began. Jake received an email from Sarah, the private investigator, with a final update. Apex compliance team contacted me for additional details. They're moving fast. Jake had sent the board a concise, anonymous email the previous day, attaching the dossier of evidence, hotel receipts, dinner charges, and photos of Emily and Ryan's affair, all tied to company funds. He framed it simply. Is this the leadership you endorse? No threats, no emotion, just facts. The board's swift response confirmed they took it seriously. At Apex Marketing, Emily sat in her office, unaware of the storm brewing. She'd spent the night in a hotel, unable to face the emptiness of their loft after Jake's ultimatum. Her phone lit up with a meeting invite from the board, marked urgent. She assumed it was about the San Francisco client pitch, but her stomach churned with unease. Ryan hadn't returned her calls since she tried reaching him after Jake's confrontation. She texted him again. "We need to talk. Now." No reply. She straightened her posture, grabbed her laptop, and headed to the boardroom, forcing confidence she didn't feel. The meeting was brutal. The board presented the evidence, Jake's dossier, now supplemented with internal audits. Hotel suites, private dinners, a Napa winery tour, all charged to Apex's accounts under the guise of client entertainment. The photos left no room for doubt. Emily and Ryan, too close, too personal. The chair, a no-nonsense woman named Diane, didn't raise her voice. "This is a clear violation of our ethics policy," she said. "You've misused company resources and compromised our integrity." Emily tried to explain, stress, a lapse in judgment, but her words crumbled under Diane's stare. Ryan, sitting across from her, offered no support, his eyes fixed on the table. By noon, the verdict was final. Emily and Ryan were terminated, effective immediately. Security escorted them out, their belongings already boxed. Emily's ears rang as she walked to her car, the weight of her ruined career sinking in. She dialed Ryan again, desperate for an ally. When he finally answered, his voice was ice. "You dragged me into this," he snapped. "Your husband sent those photos, didn't he? I'm done, Emily. Stay out of my life." The call ended, leaving her staring at her phone, alone in the parking lot. Ryan, the man she'd risked everything for, had cut her loose without a second thought. Jake, meanwhile, kept moving forward. He spent the day at the community center site, where his team was installing windows. The project, a pro bono effort for low-income families, had become his anchor. He hammered nails alongside volunteers, their chatter a welcome distraction. Mia, the young designer he mentored, pulled him aside. "You okay? You seem quiet." Jake managed a small smile. "Just working through some things. This place helps." Mia nodded, not pressing further. Her trust in him, earned through months of guidance, reminded Jake he was more than his broken marriage. That evening, Jake met Karen at her office. She'd finalized the divorce papers, ensuring Jake's assets, his firm, their savings, were protected. "Emily's got no ground to fight this," Karen said, sliding the documents across her desk. "The evidence is overwhelming, and her termination strengthens your case. She'll likely settle quickly." Jake signed the papers, his hands steady. "I just want this done," he said. "No drama." Karen nodded. "You've handled this with class. Most don't." Emily, meanwhile, moved into a small apartment across town, her belongings hastily packed from a loft. She scrolled job boards, but her reputation preceded her. Whispers of the Apex scandal had spread, making recruiters wary. She tried calling Jake, hoping to salvage something, forgiveness, closure, anything. His phone went to voicemail. She left a shaky message. "I'm sorry, Jake. I messed up. Can we talk?" He didn't call back. Instead, he texted, "Talk to my lawyer. We're done." The finality hit her like a door slamming shut. Weeks later, Jake attended a volunteer event at a local school, helping build bookshelves for a library. There, he met Lisa, a teacher with a quick laugh and a knack for rallying the group. They talked over coffee, bonding over their love of community work. Lisa's warmth was unguarded, a stark contrast to Emily's calculated charm. Jake didn't push, but he felt a spark, a hint of possibility. For the first time in months, he saw a future not defined by betrayal. Emily, on the other hand, faced a shrinking world. Freelance gigs barely covered rent, and old colleagues avoided her calls. Ryan had vanished, rumored to have left Seattle. Alone at night, she replayed Jake's words. "You decided it didn't mean anything." She'd gambled their marriage for a fleeting thrill, and now she was paying the price. Jake, meanwhile, was stepping into a new chapter, his strength forged in the fire of her betrayal. Jake Thompson stood in a Seattle park, the late afternoon sun cutting through the clouds as he pushed a stroller along a gravel path. His daughter, Mia, just over 2, giggled as he made airplane noises, her tiny hands grabbing at the air. Lisa, his fiancée, walked beside him, her hand brushing his arm as she laughed at Mia's excitement. It had been 2 years since Jake's marriage to Emily imploded, and the life he'd rebuilt felt like a hard-won victory. His community center project had opened to local acclaim. His firm was thriving, and Lisa's steady presence had shown him trust could be earned again. But the past wasn't entirely gone. Across town, Emily Carter sat alone in a cramped apartment, scrolling through job listings on her laptop. The Apex marketing scandal had followed her like a shadow. Freelance gigs dried up as her reputation lingered in the industry's gossip mill. Ryan, her former lover, had vanished, some said to Portland. Others claimed he'd spiraled into obscurity after his own career collapsed. Emily's days were a grind of low-paying contracts and avoided calls from former colleagues. The weight of her choices pressed harder each day, but it was a chance encounter that brought it all crashing back. She'd been walking out of the downtown grocery store, bags in hand, when she heard a child's laugh across the street. Instinctively, she looked up and froze. Jake, crouching to lift a little girl onto his shoulders, was beaming in a way Emily hadn't seen in years. The girl, Mia, squealed as Jake spun her gently, calling him Daddy. Then a woman, Lisa, approached, touching Jake's arm with an ease that spoke of deep trust. They shared a brief kiss, Mia tugging them into a group hug. Emily's bags slipped slightly in her grip. The scene was simple, but it gutted her. Jake had moved on, building a family, while she was stuck unraveling. That night, Emily sat on her bed. The image of Jake's new life burned into her mind. Her apartment was quiet, the silence amplifying her regret. She opened her phone, scrolling to Jake's number, still saved despite everything. Her thumb hovered over the call button, shaking. She hadn't spoken to him since the divorce, finalized swiftly after Apex fired her for misusing company funds. But the sight of him, happy and whole, pushed her to act. She pressed call, her heart pounding. Jake's phone buzzed as he tucked Mia into bed. Lisa was washing dishes, humming softly. He saw Emily's name on the screen and hesitated, then stepped onto the porch to answer. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice neutral guarded. Emily's breath caught. "Jake, it's me. I saw you today at the park. With your daughter." Her voice trembled. "Is she yours?" "Yes," Jake said simply. "Mia. She's two. She's changed everything." He paused, waiting. Emily's silence stretched, heavy with unspoken guilt. "And the woman with you?" Emily asked, barely audible. "Is she?" "Lisa. My fiancée," Jake said. "She showed me what it means to be loved, to start over." His tone wasn't cruel, just honest. Each word a quiet boundary. Emily swallowed hard. "I am sorry, Jake. For everything. I ruined us. I threw away the best thing I had." Her voice cracked, tears spilling over. "I didn't realize what I was losing until it was gone." Jake stood still, the phone pressed to his ear. He'd waited for this call once, back when the pain was raw, when he'd hoped for an apology that might ease the ache. But now, standing in the life he'd built, he felt only clarity. "You didn't just ruin us, Emily," he said, his voice steady. "You chose to break me, to lie, to walk away. I spent months in that darkness, but it taught me who I am. I rebuilt from the pieces you left." Emily sobbed quietly. "Do you forgive me?" Jake took a deep breath. "I forgive you, but that doesn't mean you get to come back. Forgiveness is for me, so I can move on. It's not a door to the past." He paused, letting the words settle. "You need to face what you did, Emily. Learn from it, because if you don't, you'll keep breaking things." She tried to respond, but he cut in gently. "Take care of yourself. Really, but we're done." He hung up, slipping the phone into his pocket. The air was cool, the park quiet beyond his porch. He felt no anger, no regret, just the weight of a chapter closed. Inside, Lisa called out, "Everything okay?" Jake smiled, stepping back into the warmth of his home. "Yeah," he said, "everything's fine." Emily sat frozen, staring at her phone. For the first time, she didn't lash out or deflect. She let the truth sink in. Losing Jake wasn't punishment. It was consequence. She'd gambled their love for a fleeting thrill with Ryan, and now she was alone, her career in tatters, her confidence shattered. The weight of it pressed her down, but it also sparked something new, a resolve to face her mistakes, to rebuild, even if it took years. Jake, meanwhile, returned to the park the next day with Lisa and Mia. The community center he'd designed stood nearby, its doors open to families, a testament to his resilience. As Mia ran ahead, chasing a butterfly, Lisa squeezed his hand. "You're a good man, Jake," she said. He nodded, watching his daughter. The pain of Emily's betrayal had forged him, but it no longer defined him. He'd found justice, not through revenge, but through living well, strong, whole, and surrounded by love.